Welcome to the GMAT Strategy Podcast. You're here because you believe there's a better way to study for the GMAT, and so do we. We created the GMAT strategy to maximize your results and minimize your effort so you can get to the fun parts about business school and life as quickly as possible. My name is Isaac Puglia, and I've been teaching GMAT classes and tutoring privately for the GMAT for almost a decade, and I've achieved a 99th percentile score on the GMAT and helped thousands of students get into the business schools of their choice. I'm excited to be a part of your MBA journey since we all at TGS think our world can benefit from the best possible business leaders that we can find. If this show is bringing you value, please share it with your friends and family who are studying so that together we can make this process as easy and as painless as it can possibly be. Let's go.
Welcome to Lesson 12 of GMAT Math Basics. Today, we're going to answer a straightforward question. How do you subtract decimals without a calculator under time pressure where one mistake could cost you the entire problem on an exam that's very helpful for the rest of your career? And the answer is using long subtraction with decimals. The great news here, just like our previous lesson, is that the same rules of long subtraction apply with just one major adjustment. So let's rehash the steps of long subtraction, just in case it's been a moment since you've engaged with the technique. So here's a question as we lead off. Do you remember how to do long subtraction with regular numbers? The first step in doing long subtraction well by hand is to stack the numbers. And what I mean by stack is lining up the place values of each number vertically with the larger number on top and the smaller number directly beneath it. So if we had the numbers 321 and 123, we would want the 1 from 321 right above the 3 from 123, and we would want all the other digits stacked vertically. Then the next step of long subtraction is to subtract the digit in the column furthest to the right. If you cannot subtract, then you're going to borrow from the digit in the column to the left. And then you're just going to repeat that process going from right to left until there are no more digits to subtract from. Those are the basic steps of long subtraction. Just like long addition with decimals, the same rules that we just talked through apply. And once again, the major adjustment we need is just to make sure that we line up the actual decimal points themselves and bring that decimal point down to the result area. So if you listen to our previous episode, then this technique is hopefully going to be quite familiar. And if you need help with the basics of long subtraction that we just walked through, just head back to lesson 7 of this series, and I will happily walk you through all the basic steps involved there. Let's assume that you have that foundational knowledge, and let's proceed with a couple examples to illustrate what I'm talking about with the whole decimal point thing and how the typical rules of long subtraction apply. Let's start with a simple example. Let's subtract 1.23 from 4.56. So if you're on audio only, I'm just doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, separated into two different numbers. We are subtracting 1 and then the decimal point, 23, so 1 and 23 hundredths, from 4.56 or 4 and 56 hundredths. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you can use that to help you visualize what I'm about to walk you through here. And the first step that we're going to do is stack the numbers. 4.56 is going to go on top. And this is an important reminder that unlike addition and multiplication, the order that you are subtracting in does matter. If we subtract 4.56 from 1.23, we're going to get a different number than if we subtract 1.23 from 4.56. So just make sure that the larger number goes on top when you're doing long subtraction, or if you prefer to think about it this way, that the number you are subtracting from goes on top and the number you are actually subtracting goes on the bottom. Then we just make sure that the decimal point itself is aligned vertically and all the other place values are aligned vertically. So in this situation, the 4 from 4.56 would be right above the 1 from 1.23. The decimal points would be right above each other. The 5 is over the 2, and the 6 is directly above the 3. Then the next step is simply to subtract the digits in the column furthest to the right. So let's begin by subtracting the 3 from 1.23 from the 6 in 4.56. 6 minus 3 is just 3, so we will write the result of that, 3, in the result area, which is at the bottom of the column that has the digits that are furthest to the right. So that would be the hundredths digit column in this case. And what I like to do is just draw a horizontal line right below the stack of numbers I just made, which is right above the result area. It's just a nice visual separation, even though it's not essential. So then we just move to the column to the left and repeat that process. So we're going to subtract the 2 from 1.23 from the 5 in 4.56. 5 minus 2 is 3. So we write that 3 in the result area at the bottom of the tenths digit column. And then we move to the column to the left and just repeat that process. Now, at this point, please don't forget to bring down your decimal point if you haven't already. I talked about this last week, but some people like to write the decimal point in the result area at the start of the problem. Other people like to wait. It's totally fine either way. For me personally, I like to wait. I find I'm less error prone when I bring the decimal point down as like the next step in my subtraction process. So I would bring that down to the result area. And at that point, we would have 0.33 in the result area so far. After you've done that, you just move to the column to the left, which in this case would be the units digit. And so in some ways, you could think about there being no differences between long subtraction without decimals and long subtraction with decimals, I guess, if you just stuck to the steps in the strictest sense. I talked about this in last week's episode as well. But just figured this could be helpful for you if you haven't done this in quite some time, which, let's be honest, is the case for most of us in this situation. Might have been a decade or more since you did some long subtraction. And maybe you never did long subtraction or never did long subtraction with decimals, which was the case for me way back in the day. I just apparently glossed over that in elementary school and learned it as an adult. It was a very interesting moment of life and a good character builder, let's put it that way. So hopefully I'm taking the edge off of this for you. So now we, again, just move to the left of the decimal place and we subtract the units digits. So in this situation, we are now going to subtract the 1 from 1.23 from the 4 in 4.56. 4 minus 1 is 3, and so we're just going to write that at the bottom of the units digit column, which again is the place value to the left of the decimal point. Now, if you're just getting into this and this is the first episode that you've listened to and you need help with place value definitions or you forgot some of those basic definitions, just head back to lesson 1 of this GMAT Math Basics series, and I will happily walk you through the core definitions that I'm using and assuming that you know. In this lesson, at least. Then there's no more place values to subtract, and so we're done. So what's the result of 4.56 minus 1.23? It's 3.33. Those are the basics of long subtraction. If you're familiar with long subtraction, then hopefully all of that sounded very normal and went exactly the way that you thought it was going to go. So the next question to address is, what about borrowing? Does borrowing and that concept change when you are using decimals? And the short answer is no. It's the same as regular long subtraction, but let's just do a quick example to illustrate this. And I'm not going to go super in depth here because I went fairly in depth with the borrowing technique in the previous lesson on long subtraction, which you're welcome to re-engage with or check out for the first time if you're not really sure about whether you have the basics totally mastered. So let me ask you this. What would be the first step if I wanted to use long subtraction to do 3.21 minus 1.23? So all I've done here is just kind of like inverted these numbers. So I have 321 and then 123, just trying to make this as easy as possible to visualize if you're just listening on audio. So 3.21 minus 1.23, what would be the first step in performing that operation? Hopefully you're thinking you're going to stack the numbers, with 3.21 on top and 1.23 right below that, with all your place values and your decimal points aligned vertically. That would be the first step. Then we just subtract the digit furthest to the right. In this particular case, we would be subtracting the 3 from 1.23 from the 1 in 3.21. But we cannot subtract 3 from 1. And so let me ask you, just as a refresher, what would you do in that situation to make that subtraction possible? Hopefully you're thinking you would borrow from the digit to the left. And again, if you don't remember how to borrow, just go back to lesson 7 and I'll walk you through that. So to borrow here, we're going to cross off the 2 from 3.21 and we're going to write a 1 above it. So when you're borrowing, you're just subtracting 1 from that digit place value to the left. And then what I like to do is I like to cross off the 1 from 3.21 and write 11 above that. So we're borrowing 10. I like to think about it as borrowing 10 from the unit to the left and then adding that to the current digit. If you like to think about it as borrowing a 1 from 2 and then just moving that 1 over to the right into the tens place, that also works. However you like to conceptualize that is totally fine, as long as you wind up with 11 at the top of the units digit column. Now we're able to subtract 3 from 11, so let's go ahead and do that. 11 minus 3 is 8, so let's write that at the bottom of the column we're working in, which is the bottom of the hundredths digit column. Then we move to the next column to the left and we do exactly the same thing. We try to subtract. Here, we want to subtract the 2 from 1.23 from what used to be the 2 in 3.21. But instead of a 2 in 3.21, we now have a 1 at the top of that column because we borrowed in the previous step. Again, we can't subtract 2 from 1, so we borrow again. That's not that big of a deal. We just cross off the 3 from 3.21, and I recommend writing a 2 right above that. And then we add 10 to the digit at the top of the column to the right, which in our case would be 1, since we borrowed from the 2 that used to be in that place. So again, we get 11 at the top of this column, which is the top of the tenths digit column. And now we subtract the 2 from 1.23 from that number. 11 minus 2 is 9. So we write that at the bottom of the tenths digit column. Again, if this is moving a little quickly for you, I walked through it a lot more slowly and a lot more in depth in lesson 7. Here, I'm assuming that you've at least gone through that once and you're roughly familiar with the concepts behind what I'm talking about here. So I'm moving at a slightly faster pace. At this point, we will want to bring down the decimal point. And right now, if we did that, we would have 0.98 in the result area. And at that point, we'll just do the final subtraction. We used to have a 3 at the top of the units digit column, but we borrowed from that and made it 2 in the previous step. From that 2, we now want to subtract the 1 from 1.23 because we are operating to the left of the decimal point now. That's great because we don't need to borrow in order to do that subtraction. We can just subtract 1 from 2 to get 1, and we'll write that at the bottom of the units digit column. At that point, there's no more digits to subtract, and so we're done. So what is the result of 3.21 minus 1.23? Hopefully you're thinking it's 1.98. And that's it. For sure, things can get longer with bigger numbers, but in terms of the basic moves you can make, those are the only moves that get made in long subtraction, and in this case, long subtraction with decimals. So hopefully you're feeling great about that. And if you are already solid with long subtraction, then hopefully this is a nice addition to your skill set or just a confirmation that you know how to do that the right way under time pressure when the stakes are high. So again, I just want to reiterate that if things do get more complicated, you'll end up doing the same moves just more times with more digits. As a final note, and just sort of revisiting some of the concepts we talked about with long subtraction, if you want to subtract a larger number from a smaller number, that is fine to do. you just want to invert the stack or flip the stack, meaning put the larger number on the top of the stack and put a negative sign preemptively to the left of the result area. So below the stack and to the left of all the existing digits, I like to write a little minus sign there. And that just reminds you that when you're subtracting a larger number from a smaller number, you're going to get a result less than 0. But what's interesting is if you just flip the stack to put the larger number on top and the smaller number on the bottom and preemptively write that negative sign to the left of the result, you'll get the exact correct result, which is kind of a nice trick. Again, at that point, you would just follow the exact same moves of long subtraction and you would get the correct result, assuming that you do your math correctly. So again, more on that in the long subtraction lesson from lesson 7 of this series. And at this point, I've probably said that about 5 times, so hopefully you know where to go if you need some more help with that. A quick little side note here, and this is like a very 2024 thing to discuss, but if you want to try some more advanced examples of this, then I've found that a good large language model prompt, and you can use your preferred provider of large language model services these days, is something like generate 10 decimal long subtraction problems to help me improve my GMAT score. Something like that can get you some great, more complicated examples of long subtraction problems if you want to go off on your own and start generating some of these drills yourself. And there's plenty of free models available out there. And if you're not sure how to use those or what to do with them, then feel free to shoot us a DM. We're at the GMAT strategy on current social channels. Now, as I hopefully mentioned in a previous lesson, we're going to be working on some human and possibly human and AI generated drills for all of you, but we're still working on the optimal moves for that because there's definitely a lot of nuance here on the teaching side of things to make sure that we're giving you the most efficient route to building your GMAT math basic skills. Hopefully on your side, you're feeling like this is really simple and really easy. That's our goal for this series. On our side, we're doing a lot of heavy lifting on your behalf to make sure that it comes across as much that way as it possibly can. Since many of you may have never learned these things, like I alluded to before, or maybe you've struggled with these kind of basics in the past, and this is a big pain point for you on the GMAT and you moving to the next level of your career and becoming more of the person you want to be. So doing our best to help out with that. And so that's why the drill sets that we're building are taking some time, because we've realized it's generally not as simple if we want really, really great reinforcement learning for these lessons to just pop it into a generative AI system right now. Now, with the rate that technology is moving, it might all work out perfectly tomorrow. We'll see. Seems like there's several new innovations every day in that space. But for now and the current state of the art, a super, super simple prompt such as generate 10 or 20 or 30, whatever you want, decimal long subtraction problems to help me improve my GMAT score has worked well across a variety of models that we've tested that with. Side note, as of now, I've found that the current state of large language models and generative AI struggle to generate great GMAT problems, like simulating the way the problem would look on the real exam. It's not that they're horrible, it's just that it's a little bit of a struggle. And as a student, you might not have the sort of like expertise and discerning eye to really know the difference between what would typically show up on an exam and what wouldn't. Having said that, these large language models I've found usually work super well for basic computation drills, which is why I just gave you that tip. Again, that could change tomorrow with the pace of innovation in the field, but that's my recommendation for now, is to continue to use official guide questions for real simulation problems. And then you can, if you want to, use large language models to help you explain those problems to yourself. That can be a good use case for those, or to help you generate computation drills. Now, many of you probably use Gen AI in much more sophisticated ways than I do, and you might be experts or masters, or maybe you work at a business consulting firm and you teach how to use Gen AI tools to Fortune 100 companies. It's probably a good number of you actually in the audience who do that. And so if you have suggestions or you have some things to teach me, then I'm wide open to learning. And I think it's a very, very interesting and exciting time in that world of technology. From my side of the equation and based on my understanding of the tech, I feel that my role in your prep is to help you use that for your GMAT studies to the greatest degree possible. And that's my intention when I'm giving you these pieces of advice. So, quick quiz as we wrap up here. What do you personally want to remember from the lesson we just went through about how to do long subtraction with decimals? My main points are number one, it's the same as regular long subtraction. Number two, you want to remember to line up your decimals and bring down the decimal to the result area. And then number three, if you want to, you can use large language models to help you practice many of the GMAT basic skills that I've walked you through here in this series so far. Now, if you are struggling with your preparation or you're not happy with the results you're getting with your current provider or your current study plan, or you just want to speed this process of GMAT study up, I strongly recommend checking out the video on our website. It's completely free and it'll help you figure out how you can adjust your approach and your strategy and how you're focusing your study time and greatly accelerate your progress. As part of that video offering, you're also welcome to book a call with us if you want more specific advice and or you would like to learn more about working with us directly could look like. There's no obligation for those calls. We're just going to understand your situation and help you out if it's capable for us to do that, which it typically is. We usually can help you adjust your study plan and help you accelerate your progress quite a bit and help you discover some resources that maybe you weren't aware of that could be a really good fit for your situation. If it seems like we are a good fit to work together, great. And if not, it's all good. I'm sure you will benefit from the time spent. And we've gotten tons and tons of positive feedback from people who we've never even offered any paid products or services to. And sometimes we'll actually even recommend other paid products, which hopefully you've already heard me do in many episodes of this podcast, because my philosophy on all of this whole situation is to just try to match up the right people with the right products for them, whether that's our products or somebody else's products. There are many great providers in the GMAT space. We're not here to pretend that we're the only option, because it's clearly not the case. Having said that, if you're not happy with your current option, we do things quite differently within our system. And if you're interested in that, please let us know. Now, on the website, we don't have any offers listed because everything we do is customized for the individual, which is why we offer those calls in the first place. We do sometimes get backed up with those calls and scheduling during the summer months where we have the round one deadlines coming up, like we do right now when I'm recording this episode for you, which is August of 2024. So if you can't find a suitable call time, please just be a little patient with us. Reach out to us directly, and we will do our absolute best to help you out and hopefully really make a difference for you. As always, my greatest hope is that this material will make your studies as easy and as painless as they can possibly be. If you want more tips and strategies for optimizing your performance on the GMAT, please head to our website, thegmatstrategy.com, which is linked in the description of this content. If you don't want to type that into a browser, you can just click it and go right there. And check out our video presentation on how to reach your dream GMAT score in half the normal time. In the meantime, this is a weekly show, so please subscribe and please stay positive and stay consistent with your studies. I'll talk to you all soon.